Maya had an interesting hobby in her younger years. Her first young man introduced her to a specific kind of intimacy where various curious paraphernalia were used. Inexperienced Maya, who was only 22 at the time, was terribly afraid and embarrassed by it, but at the same time had a genuine interest. The racy subject turned her on, fueling vivid fantasies of boasting about the experience to her girlfriends later on. However, in the end, she discovered that the intimacy of their shared hobby was too personal to share with anyone. The interest lingered in her life for an extended period, lasting until her relationship with her lover came to an end. Maya sobbed for a long time after their connection with the young man ended, and she came to terms with the fact that nothing could be taken back. Finding that perfect partner in bed is not easy, given the sensitivity of the topic, which is not suitable for everyone. Her primary concern was the fear that her future partner might not share the same inclinations. Her future husband, Thomas, refused to participate in her hobby after one attempt and didn't want to participate again. Maya pouted at him for a week, before finally accepting his decision. She loved Thomas, and giving him up because of such nonsense would have been foolish. Naively, Maya believed that by removing this interest from her life, she could easily forget about it. It is a recognized fact that forbidden fruit is sweet. With each passing year, the desire grew. Hundreds of adult films about the topic failed to produce the intended outcome. Maya yearned to relive those emotions once more. Occasionally, without Thomas's knowledge, she clandestinely explored themed groups on social networks, engaging in conversations on behalf of others who shared similar interests. Initially, it provided a degree of satisfaction, but eventually led to even greater hunger. Maya tried not to say anything about it to her husband. Thomas tried to satisfy her every want since he loved her unconditionally. She didn't want her personal issues to ruin their partnership. It all started with an ordinary correspondence. To her private page, a man wrote declaring himself to be Jackson. He said that he had discovered her conversing with like-minded individuals in one of those groups. He stated his needs right away. He needed a woman while online. Jackson did not, however, rule out the prospect of meeting in person. Maya started to feel uneasy and disconnected for a few days. Two personalities struggled inside her, one that pleaded with her not to answer, and one that insisted she do so. After 3 days, Jackson received a response indicating Maya's agreement. At this point, Maya trembled with excitement, a strange smile playing on her lips. Similar emotions had surfaced when her ex-boyfriend had initially introduced her to this unfamiliar world. Now Maya found herself completely under the influence of her newfound acquaintance. The sensations were unfamiliar yet captivating. Throughout, Jackson kept her in a state of anticipation. The woman never knew when he would remind her of herself. This occurrence was unpredictable, transpiring during various settings, be it on family trips to visit Thomas's relatives, amidst a theatrical performance, or during a crucial work meeting. At times, Maya found herself giggling or blushing as she read the messages. The allure of her newfound secret life greatly appealed to her. Thomas also observed a shift in his wife's demeanor. Suddenly, she became more affectionate, consistently desiring intimacy and connection. He could not be happy about her sudden changes, and enjoyed every minute spent in bed with his beloved. Of course, Thomas had no idea that at the moment of maximum intimacy with him, Maya was presenting a completely different person who was doing completely different things to her. Maya's clandestine connection with Jackson endured for several months, and he started pressing for a face-to-face meeting. This alarmed Maya, because playful correspondence, fulfilling certain requests and sending photos were one thing, but engaging in a physical rendezvous and real cheating on her husband was an entirely different matter. It wasn't part of her intended course of action. Throughout this period, the woman clung to the hope that her conversational partner had forgotten about his desire to meet, but her hopes proved futile. Jackson persisted, practically coercing her into agreeing to a meeting in a matter of days. Maya disappeared from their chat again to contemplate the situation. Time seemed to stretch endlessly for her, caught in the dilemma between two conflicting options, unsure of which one to choose. Eventually, she made a decision, pacifying her conscience with the notion that such opportunities arise only once in a lifetime, and it would be imprudent not to seize it. That's precisely what Maya conveyed to Jackson. However, upon reading her message, the prospective lover ceased contact. Maya grew anxious, and shortly after she received a brief message that simply said, "You're stupid." Everything that happened next, she remembered with a shudder for a long time. Jackson, with whom Maya corresponded using a fictitious identity, figured her out and found out who her husband was. And when he received consent for a real meeting, Jackson sent all their correspondence to Thomas. The realization of what she had written to her internet lover, and what pictures she had sent him, and that now her husband had seen it all, made her sick. Thomas felt even worse, and he was tearing up. Maya had never witnessed him so enraged. Initially disregarding a message from an unfamiliar sender on the social network, Thomas now found himself grappling with the repercussions of his indifference. However, Thomas decided to pay attention to what the stranger had to say as he began sharing. He began sharing images of his wife that were plainly personal in nature. It took the man a long time to recover from his shock. He questioned why his devoted and caring wife would act in such a way. There had been no inkling of infidelity in their relationship before this revelation. Once early in the relationship, Thomas had denied her a favorite form of lovemaking. Was that truly such a big impact? Initially, he held himself responsible, believing that by refusing, he had forced his wife to cheat. Then it occurred to him that he was not responsible for her actions. His wife's affair had been a deliberate decision on her part, and she bore sole responsibility for it. Throughout the evening, they engaged in heated arguments, exchanging mutual grievances. Never in all their years together had they quarreled to such an extent. Prior to this, they had never encountered such a weighty and serious topic in their relationship. Thomas scolded his wife for having an affair with another man, but he couldn't believe what was happening. It felt as if he were on the verge of waking up, anticipating that it would all dissolve into a distant memory, akin to a troubling dream. His love for Maya was deep, and he held aspirations of building a complete family with her, yearning for the day she would grant him the gift of a daughter. He knew with certainty that these dreams were not meant to be fulfilled. Even though Maya pleaded for her husband to forgive her, the divorce was finalized quickly. However, he did his best to resist giving in to her pleas of sympathy. There was very little for the couple to divide. On the other hand, the man was glad they didn't have to share anything. He wished to put the entire incident behind him as quickly as possible and never see his ex-wife again. For a long while, Maya persisted in her attempts to learn the true identity of the man who had introduced himself to Jackson. On her own, the woman could not find any clues in their correspondence, so she resorted to outside help. She had a long-time acquaintance who happened to be a hacker. A few days later, he provided her with the user's data. Upon reading the name, Maya was stunned, her mouth agape. How could she have possibly forgotten about this man? He was a former classmate who had pursued her for a considerable period, though his affection had never been reciprocated. Maya had gracefully declined him at first, but as he started to bother her under more strain, she could take it no longer, and retaliated violently. The guy was resentful of her. He spent a considerable amount of time following her on social media, and even discovered her particular hobbies. Upon learning of his beloved's marriage, he started contemplating how to exact revenge. Maya had forgotten that she had such a naysayer because all these disputes with a former classmate had happened so long ago. However, he had finally achieved his goal. Her spouse had abandoned her. In the grip of despair, Maya threw herself into her work with unwavering intensity, attempting to divert her thoughts from the harsh reality of her life. Returning to her cold, empty apartment in the evenings, she found no one awaiting her. Seeking solace, she turned to a bottle of wine and shed tears over the realization that she had single-handedly shattered her own life. Thank you for listening to the story until the end. If you enjoyed it, please show your support by liking and subscribing to our channel. We would also love to hear your thoughts in the comments.